Welcome to another episode of Full Build Friday, where I try to build a character from a comic, game, or similar source using the baseline rules of Pathfinder 2nd Edition and the Path Builder app. Today features a request that actually comes from right here on YouTube. Now, I don't know this character, much less this series, but I've done some work and talked to some people to bring you all a build for Squall Leonhart from Final Fantasy VIII.
Too bad you crossed our path.
Especially when it comes to a character like this where I don't know them quite as well, we absolutely need to lay out some build goals, so let's get into that. Squall was an orphan who became cold and distant after he thought himself abandoned by his childhood friend, which led to him training to become a mercenary known as a Seed. He trained in the use of a gunblade, but uses it unconventionally, firing the gun part of it to enhance the damage it inflicts with the blade. His gunblade demonstrates the highest accuracy in the game, and can be manually triggered to deal additional damage, effectively giving him a guaranteed crit. Squall's limit break is Renzo Kuken, which is a series of 4 more slashes followed by a finishing move based on what weapon he has access to. His basic finisher is Rough Divide, which involves him charging an enemy to deliver a single powerful blow that deals high damage. His next finisher is Fated Circle, where he jumps into the air and charges up energy in his weapon before spinning and releasing a shockwave to damage all enemies around him. Blasting Zone is another area finisher, but this one has him lift up his weapon and imbue it with energy until he brings it down in a slam that strikes all foes. Finally, he gains access to the Leonhart finisher. This causes him to knock an enemy upward and unleash a flurry of blows, that he finishes off with a heavy strike that drives them back into the ground. Like all characters in his game series, Squall can summon Guardian Forces to aid him in battle, though he gets the most benefit out of those that enhance his physical capabilities, such as Ifrit and Cerberus. Ultimately, Squall is a supremely stoic mercenary, who wields his gunblade with incredible accuracy, even able to manually trigger critical hits by firing the gun in his weapon. He unleashes rapid attacks and can channel magic into his blade for more powerful strikes. He can also use this magic to summon guardians to aid him in battle, though he favors those that simply enhance his physical prowess. I'm not quite sure we'll reach the height of Squall's capabilities, but let's batten down the hatches and start structuring this stormy soldier. Starting with the ancestry as we always do, this build uses human as the baseline, but adds the Ifrit heritage to Squall. He seems to favor fire-based summons, and this leans into that concept as well as his innate magic. He will be starting with Natural Ambition for his ancestry feat, but that will be further explored when we talk about his class. With Squall training to be a Seed, the Martial Disciple background fits him the best, and as this build relies a little bit more on strength, he is going to become trained in athletics with this, as well as warfare lore. This also means that he gets the ever-excellent Quick Jump as his skill feat, letting him bound considerable distances in a single action. This just leaves his class, and as we've already done, we're going to keep it nice and simple. We are going to lean into Squall's absolutely amazing accuracy by building him as a fighter. This makes him an expert in his weapons right off the bat, and thanks to his natural ambition, he gets 2 class feats. First on his list is Vicious Swing, letting him make an extra strike that really has some oomph behind it, and this could be seen as a general way for him to manually trigger those crits, or the powerful blow that finishes the combo of Rough Divide. He does also gain Sudden Charge, which could cover the first part of Rough Divide, the charge that he makes towards his enemy. Obviously he can use both of these as part of the same turn, but they will, separately, allow him to swiftly engage an enemy and then make a powerful strike against them. It's a basic but versatile start that we'll expand on as we delve deeper into this build. But before we do that, we've still got skills to discuss. As a fighter, Squall becomes trained in acrobatics, but then also becomes trained in crafting, intimidation, stealth, and survival. As I said, Squall is going to have a focus on strength, but dexterity is also a very nice bonus to have high on him. He also wants a decent starting intelligence, as that will play into an aspect of this build. Moving into second level, we're taking, at least what feels to me, to be a very anime option with the Blade Break class feat. This lets him use a reaction to drive his blade into the ground to stop himself from being forcibly moved. From what I've gleaned about this character, it isn't like this is super indicative of his kit, but it does kind of feel up his alley. As for his skill feat, where he missed out on Catfall from his background, we'll take it here instead. Anime characters aren't too different from superheroes, and this gives him the ability to pull off those landings. third level is looking at Ancestral Paragon for Squall, so that he can take Inner Fire. This gives him access to Produce Flame, which is the pre-master version of Ignition. This ancestry feat hasn't been remastered, but I can only guess it is intended to update to the new spell, and that's what it seemed to do on Pathbuilder. His first skill increase goes to Athletics, to make him an expert at knocking enemies down and otherwise pushing them around. And he will take advantage of that Athletics with Slam Down as his class feat at 4th level. He takes particular advantage of this as a fighter through his Reactive Strike class feature, and it will be important with representing the way that he slams enemies into the ground during Leonhart. As for his skill feat, I wanted to play into Squall's stoicism, and some may say lack of a personality, with Intimidating Glare as a skill feat, even if he doesn't really invest in the skill. I imagine this is mainly how he just ends up reacting to most people. Further covering this concept is Noble Resolve, an ancestry feat that gives him a bonus on saves against mental effects, and that comes from his Ifrit heritage. As a fighter, Squall also chooses the Sword for his Weapon Mastery group, which has the added benefit of giving him critical specialization effects for his swords. Now, why is this important? Because it means that Squall can take advantage of his weapon's critical fusion trait. When Squall lands a hit, he can fire his gun and cause his sword to deal additional damage per weapon damage die, which is a perfect representation for how he actually uses his gunblade in Final Fantasy. On top of all that, Squall becomes an expert in acrobatics and uses a boost from intelligence to become trained in society. But that is not all that he's using that intelligence boost for. With it, at 6th level, he can now take a Magus Dedication. This will make him train in Arcana and also grants him 2 cantrips. He's going to want to take up cantrips with the attack trait, and I personally favor Gouging Claw and Livewire here, with the one giving him a way to bleed an opponent, and the other giving him some different and additional elemental damage. His skill feat for this level will be Powerful Leap, which increases the range he can bound with the leap or jump actions. It's a basic but always helpful increase. Now, with the investment that Squall has had to make to his intelligence, he hasn't been able to invest as much in Constitution. Taking Toughness as his general feat at 7th level helps to bring his hit points a little bit more online with where we want them to be. He also becomes a Master in Athletics with this level's skill increase. From Squall's Magus archetype, he takes Spell Striker, so that he can, once per minute, make a Spell Strike. This comes with the benefit of using the fighter's accuracy, increasing the chance of a crit, so be sure to use this wisely. In addition to the cantrips from its archetype, Squall can Spell Strike with the Ignition from his Ancestry feat, giving him a variety of damage. These more powerful attacks could help to demonstrate Squall's Renzo Kuken before he delivers a finishing blow. Squall also picks up Wall Jump as his skill feat, which substantially increases his verticality by allowing him to bound between nearby walls and ascend. It's another one of those options that just feels very anime to me, and a solid fit for Squall. From my admittedly limited understanding of Final Fantasy, it involves some pretty far-ranging adventures, which leads to the use of Squall's Hardy Traveler Ancestry feat for 9th level, letting him carry more and move faster during overland travel. Maybe Squall trying to put some more distance between him and the friends that he doesn't want. As a fighter, he also gains combat flexibility, which you can use to swap around fighter feats with. As a good basic one, I personally like Furious Focus, as this will allow him to more safely make strikes following up his Vicious Swing without as big of a penalty. Now, as for his skill increase, Squall can take an increase to Arcana to become an expert in it, which may help him further explore his Magus archetype. Though, I have to be honest, that is something I've got saved a bit more for the free archetype options. This supremely stoic swordsman selects Hybrid Study Spell as his 10th level class feat, which will be used to pick up Thunderous Strike. This nets Squall a focus point that he can spend to charge up his sword, and then bring it crashing down to deal damage in an area. A picture-perfect pick for his Blasting Zone finisher. It's admittedly not quite to the range of Blasting Zone, but I mean, come on, it's anime. The whole thing is about over-exaggeration. As to the skill feat for this level, Squall will take Rolling Landing, allowing him to keep moving when he takes a fall but isn't damaged by it. As his acrobatics increases, he'll be able to fall further distances and then move further on top of that. On that topic, Squall takes up Fleet as his general feat at 11th level, letting him run, jump, and all of that even farther. He also spends a skill increase on Arcana to become a master of it. Now from what I read, the impact against the ground for Leonhart deals damage, and I want to represent that with Crashing Slam as Squall's 12th level class feat. He can enhance his slam down with this effect and get some more damage out of it. Not a lot, admittedly, but even just a little bit more is real nice. Helping him strike down even larger enemies with this ability is Titan Wrestler as Squall's skill feat, which will allow him to down the likes of huge creatures and even potentially colossal creatures. At 13th level, Squall becomes a legend with his swords, though another aspect of this is that he will also become a master with all other weapons. He also gains an Ancestry feat, which is spent on Summoned Fire Elemental. This is inspired by Squall's ability to call forth Guardian Forces, letting him summon a Fire Elemental as he does seem to better synergize with Guardians that have that sort of theme. And this was actually a main reason that I went for the Ifrit heritage to begin with, even as Squall himself doesn't demonstrate the more typical traits of it. The skill increase for this level sees Squall become a master in acrobatics, enhancing both his catfall and rolling landing. You can also use that acrobatics to take up Kip Up for his skill feat at 14th level. And keep in mind, Kip Up's always a great pickup. Then, slightly out of order for how I usually do things, we'll take Whirlwind Strike as his class feat, which will be used to recreate Squall's Fated Circle finisher. I also liked the idea of Spell Swipe to do this since he does charge up his slash with energy before he does it, but that requires a deeper investment in Magus that we haven't quite managed to get, and would come at a higher level. Continuing the theme of class feats, level 15 gives Squall improved flexibility, which I like to use to pick up Brutal Finish. With this and Furious Focus, Squall can potentially Vicious Swing and Brutal Finish at only a -5, almost getting 2 Vicious Swings in a single turn. But this is something you can switch out as you need, just like before. His general feat for this level is going to be Fast Recovery because, true to its name, it's just generally useful. We're looking at both a skill increase to Athletics to make him a legend in it, as well as an increase to Nature due to his Intelligence boost that makes him trained in it. While Squall has that high accuracy as a fighter, I still wanted to give him guaranteed crits, and the closest I can get to that is Overwhelming Blow as his 16th level class feat. While it takes 3 actions, it does give him an automatic crit if he can land the strike. And if he happens to crit that strike, it adds the Deadly D12 trait to his attack, which combos with his Critical Fusion for some solid damage. Then his Legendary Athletics lets him pick up Cloud Jump as his skill feat, letting him make those insane leaps that I can only assume are in the repertoire for such a character. I'm not sure how well either of the 2 17th level Ancestry feats available to Squall fit him, but Heroic Presence does mesh with him being the main protagonist of his game, and the idea that he favors Guardian Forces that enhance his physical attributes, which this will do for himself and his team. The skill increase here then will go to Acrobatics so he can become a legend in it, letting him pull off impossible falls. We've covered a lot of Squall's basic abilities, but I want to explore his crit capabilities just a bit more. At 18th level, lets him take Savage Critical to that end. Though, I suppose if I'm to be completely honest, I'm not actually sold on this feat. It gives you crits on a 19 if you hit, but especially with a fighter, if a 19 isn't a crit to begin with, something's a little funky. It will be more helpful on second or maybe even third attacks in a round, but is still ultimately a gamble. Now, there's still no legendary skill feats for acrobatics, meaning that Squall will just take Water Sprint as a skill feat here, letting him run across surfaces of water to reach his enemies. 19th level will see Squall scooping up Robust Health as his general feat, just letting his teammates give him some more healing so that he can stay in the fight longer. Maybe this is Squall finally learning to have friends. Then, continuing the trend of what we've already been doing, we'll take our skill increase here to Arcana and become a legend in that as well. One aspect that we've been missing out on is the rapidity with which Squall makes his attacks, and while there is an item to help with that, the Quick Strike Weapon Rune, Squall can use Weapon Supremacy as his 20th level class feat to just become permanently quickened. Fittingly, this extra action can only be used for a strike, but that gives him the option to start with a Renzo Kuken with 4 slashes, and then followed up the next round with a finisher like Whirlwind Strike or Slam Down. He then finishes off his skill feats with Unified Theory, mainly as it will allow him to use his now legendary Arcana to identify enemies, and who best to bust out which moves on. But if all the moves we've collected here aren't enough for you, I suppose you could take a look at a free archetype game. With Squall lacking the requisite intelligence to take an early Magus dedication, he could actually dip into a Gunslinger dedication, with a Way of the Trigger brand. Even if he doesn't use a combination weapon normally, he can still take advantage of pretty much any of the reload options, as well as something like Trigger Brand Salvo, which gives him a nice buff to his damage. Further exploration of the Magus dedication is most likely to be spent on more spells, and maybe taking some buffing or summoning spells, given the Guardian forces that he tends to favor. It's time to head into the Eye of the Storm and take a look at what we've managed to build. Squall Leonhart is an Ifrit human fighter with a martial disciple background. This is based on the training he underwent to become a mercenary, and represents his gunblade with a gun sword. Once he gets his critical specialization effect, the critical fusion trait will allow him to use the firing of the gun to enhance his damage. The fighter fits with his accuracy, and Overwhelming Blow gives him a way to guarantee a crit as long as he lands his strike. Renzo Kukin is a series of slashes, and his weapon supremacy letting him make up to 4 strikes in a round is a good way to show it off. Sudden Charge can cover the initial charge of his Rough Divide, while its Heavy Blow comes from Vicious Swing, which should be modified with the likes of Furious Focus through his Flexibility class feature. Whirlwind Strike allows him to slash out at all enemies around him, akin to Fated Circle, whereas the energy he charges it with comes from his Magus dedication and the Spell Striker feat. This archetype also grants him access to Thunderous Strike, letting him enhance a strike with damage that hits in a cone behind his primary target, akin to the way that he extends his blade with Blasting Zone. Weapon Supremacy pulls double duty for his Leonhart, but he also works in Crashing Slam and Slam Down to smash his enemies into the earth, as per the finishing of this effect. On top of his physical capabilities, he grabs Summon Fire Elemental from his heritage to reflect his ability to call upon Guardian forces within the game, going for a Frit as he seems to favor fiery forces. Amply armed and able, this awkward anti-hero amplifies his attacks with ammunition and arcane additions, acting with advanced accuracy to annihilate amoral adversaries. I gave it my all here, folks. This is a character way outside my usual scope, so be sure to let me know what you think of it and what other sorts of builds you'd like to see. My list is pretty full right now, but I'm always down to add some more to it. I just need you to be a little patient with me, because I think my current list will take me into next year. In the meantime, you can check out the other builds I've done over on the blog, Discord, or Twitter, all of which are linked below. Other than that, thanks for watching, and have a fantastic Friday.